So a couple of weeks ago, we started, I think I mentioned that in Science of Mind communities in January, it is common practice to take the first 4 chapters of this and dice it up and learn a little bit of the basics of Science of Mind. So this week we're going to take on Chapter 2. Last time we looked at the chapter that Ernest called The Thing Itself. Today we will take in the chapter The Way It Works. So, with no further, that's your cue right there. Bread time. So, before I say that, though, let me say this. I did mention that tomorrow is the anniversary, or actually I think it was yesterday was the anniversary. Tomorrow is the recognized holiday for Martin Luther King's birthday. And I love to celebrate. I love holidays. I love all of those things. They just, to me, remind me that anytime we are excited about something or celebrate something, that what we are really doing is we are recognizing that something good is going on with that. If it's a birthday, we're celebrating that, here we are doing it again. We've made it through another 360-something days of life to celebrate and say, I've got, this much more experience behind me and this much more to look forward to. If it's a holiday, we're celebrating whatever that holiday is a tribute of. And I love Dr. King. Again, I think that he did things that were amazing for this country. I actually lived right outside of Washington, D.C. in the 1960s when, a lot of what he had done was still really rippling out, and there were huge shifts, and the way that fanned out to people my age is that kids were getting bussed all over the place. But, it changed the terrain of what we are about, I think, in this country. So there's a quote from Dr. King here that I found that I think is really neat. He tells us, rarely do we find men who willingly engage in hard and solid thinking. There is an almost universal quest for easy answers and half-baked solutions. Nothing pains some people more than having to think. And when I think about that, to me, I think about Ernest Holmes, because he was obviously someone, as the founder of Science of Mind, that was not afraid to really sit and contemplate and take a line of thinking as deeply as he could. And he did that, and he created this amazing teaching known as Science of Mind. And when I think about my life, I just can't tell you what it would be like or how complete it would feel without this. So when I read that, I really thought about Ernest and about Science of Mind. Ernest Holmes was obviously somebody who was not afraid to think through things. And he did that, and, if you can wrap your mind around this, you're a greater specimen than I, for sure. That is a piece of work there. It's a life's work. It was his life's work. So today we're going to take just a little piece of that from the 2nd chapter, and we're going to begin to look at it. And as we do that, we're going to go back and study a few things and just remind ourselves of things that were mentioned several weeks ago. We recognize that Ernest uses a lot of different and weird words for God. One of those is it, okay, or thing, or the universe, or the cosmos. I like divine presence. That's one that I use in my own personal, mental constructs with and for and about God, interacting with the divine. He also goes on to tell us that Science of Mind isn't something that just was kind of downloaded as the revelation of an individual. He calls it the culmination of all revelations. Now that's a pretty lofty statement, because he's saying it's the be-all, end-all, it's the thing that is the culmination, the complete, takeaway, if you will, of everything. But then toward the end of his life, he made a statement that I think is really huge. He said that this teaching is open at the top. And what he meant by that was that we can't ever consolidate God. We can't ever write the final chapter in a book about who we are, okay, or what God is. We recognize that essentially God is and we are. I love that little picture that was on PowerPoint for the reflection of the kitten and the lion, because that says it all to me. You know, many times we see our smallness, if you will. We see our humanness, and it is harder, I think, for us to wrap our minds around the fact that that divinity, that life force that is God, is what we are. That there really is no difference. That any limitation that is imposed by this, by our minds, and we can change that. We have all the power in the world that we ever need to change that. Yeah. We also recognized that as individualized centers of God stuff, in a lot of writings, we hear the way that that is written is that we are the sons of God, or daughters, if you will. A lot of that writing is a little antiquated in terms of gender preference. And even if you read Ernest, which was written back in the 1920s, he uses a lot of he's and a lot of hims. He can do that. I wish he didn't, and he does. And you know, my encouragement is change it any way you need to with those things to make it work better for you. So as sons and daughters of God, we are that its divine reflection. We are its divine expression. And it is our thought, it is our emotion. These are the ways that we make use of the divine spirit, both consciously and unconsciously. Ernest also goes on to tell us that when we start talking about religion and we start talking about God, it feels really intangible. It's really hard to pinpoint the divine. And there are many spiritual writers that have said that with our finite mind, we're going to have a little trouble understanding the infinite. And you know, when I read that, I always feel really gratified, because it certainly is true for me. If you've got all the answers about God, you know, well, bless you. That's interesting. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Yeah. But Ernest talks about this in the way that he says sometimes their teaching feels very etheric to people until we point out that if you live these principles and use these spiritual technologies that are offered in Science of Mind, what you will see is some very tangible results. You will see your life change. You will see your relationships get happier. You will see your health improve. And there's many of us in this room that could say, yes, I've seen new jobs show up. I've seen better health for myself, for my families. Amazing things. Yeah, amazing things. To go back to that first chapter, a few more things that Ernest reminds us of is that the universe doesn't play favorites. Now, I don't know about a lot of you, but I grew up in a teaching that told me, be good or God will take it away from you. Be bad and you will be punished. The goodness will not be yours. You will suffer. And as a little child, I have to tell you, that scared me immensely. Because I was pretty convinced that I was going to a warm place when it was all over, you know. And that I was not going to have a lot of fun getting there either. The rest of this thing called life was not going to be enjoyable, you know. Because I was always going to be walking on that tightrope of am I or am I not good enough? Am I or am I not loved? Well, in this teaching, what we get out of the very first chapter in the Science of Mind text is we don't have to worry about that anymore. Bottom line is, we are love. It's not whether we are loved or not. We are love. So we get that. Ernest also goes on to tell us that we can that idea of an anthropomorphic God. I hope you're really impressed with the fact that I said that word. I am. Didn't even stutter over it. How about that? But you know what that means. You get it, that there is no love-hate thing going on. There is no God who alternately loves and hates, or punishes and then welcomes. Off with that head. Okay, so we can let that go too. I'm watching the fire back there. Okay. So in the second chapter, there's one message that we need to get, and that is that the universe has one answer to everything. And I know many of you, you've been in classes, you've been here for a while on Sundays, you know what that answer is. What is that answer?
Yes.
It's yes. So essentially, anything that is going on in our world, if we don't like it, the universe, we sent it out there, the universe said yes to it. All we have to do is change the message, right? That's all we, and it's very simple. It's very, very simple. That message that we send out is made up of what we believe. And remember now, you know, Abraham has taught us this. What is a belief? A belief is a thought that we've had over and over and over again, right? So if you don't like something about your belief system, for instance, I'll go back to mine, from that young experience I had of kind of believing that God is out to get me, and if I don't do right, I'm going to pay for it later. After I came into this teaching, I had to keep reminding myself. I had to keep saying to myself, you don't have to believe that anymore. You found something that feels truer, that feels righter, that feels more like what you've been looking for all of your life. So I was able to get rid of that message, okay? You don't like the beliefs you have, change the thoughts you have. The other way that we send, another way that we send out that message is through what we feel. And you know, feelings are really interesting, aren't they? You know, how many of you have feelings you don't like some days? How many of you have feelings that you don't like every day? Okay, yeah, right, okay. We're all living in the same world, so. You know, but what we realize is that all we have to do is begin to feel different and begin to think different and begin to believe different, and what will happen in our lives will be different. Let's go to the next slide. A lot of times people come into this teaching and they ask, what does the science of mind symbol mean? And so what you see on the wall there today is just a little piece of this. Okay? We're going to talk about some other components in a minute. But what you see is we've got a circle there. This actually comes from the back of the Science of Mind text. Ernest calls it Metaphysical Chart 1. Okay? And we're going to just sort of pick this apart. What you see is 3 segments drawn in that circle. And those represent, if you will, three mechanisms or 3 components that have a big piece in explaining how is it that we create. So we talk about the top one there. I've got it in quotes, and what's in quotes is the word word. Well, now that's in quotes for a reason, okay? Because it might not just be a word. It might be anything going out. It might be thoughts. It might be beliefs. It might be feelings. But whatever it is that which is moving forth into the world from us. A sensation. It could even be subconscious. Okay? So we might have an experience of some sort and realize, gee, you know, I just had a very strong reaction to something that just happened to me. I don't understand why. Maybe there's something going on in my consciousness that's deeper, that's sort of buried, that's down in there below my awareness, that's going on that I need to, you know, kind of look at. Have you ever had an experience where something like that happened? One way that things tend to come to us like that is through dreams. If you've ever had a dream that just catapulted you out of sleep, and for days or hours or for a long time afterward, you just kind of stumbled around half in that dream. I think sometimes things like that are coming way up from our subconscious into our awareness, and they just blow us away because we didn't know that all that was going on there, you know. I believe my dreams, and I believe our dreams, really do speak to us a lot about what's going on, kind of, in terms of a hidden agenda, if you will, or hidden consciousness. So the word can be anything. And essentially, what this is diagramming here is that things come from word. They impact that universal law. This is just another name for God, okay? Universal law is essentially that thing that only has that one answer. It says yes. So essentially we have a diagram that says whatever is going out impacts that universal law. Universal law always says yes. And what we get is the effect. And the effect, that word is also in quotes, that again can be anything that is a manifest in consciousness. So it can be in the body of your affairs. Perhaps you look at your checkbook and go, oh God, how are we going to do it this month? Or you look in the pantry and think the food that I am seeking is not there. Where's that chocolate? I know I put it in here. That would be at my house. But effect can be anything manifest. We could look at our physical selves and go, well, why all of a sudden would I get up and have a really funny condition going on all of a sudden when I don't see any reason for that? It is coming forth in the body of our affairs. Let's go to the next slide, Kevin. Okay. One thing that makes it a little easier to understand, okay, we use this analogy a lot in science of mind, is that of the seed, the soil, and the plant. And the seed is your thought. The soil is the medium. Here in a couple of weeks, we're all going to be going to Lowe's or ordering seeds online. Or if you were like, I know some of what Katie and I did last year in the garden, I actually have seeds in my freezer from stuff that we grew last year that we thought, this is pretty cool. Okay, we're going to save the seeds. It came out, the whatever it was, I think I have peas in my freezer from last year. Okay, the peas were so good that I thought, well, I'm going to save some of the peas and we'll plant and we'll have more peas. I guess that's the way that works. She's the gardener. I'm the help. I don't know. But we take the thought, we put that thought into the soil, which is that universal mind. And what happens when you plant a seed? It's very easy. Given the right conditions, given some sunlight, given some water, given some nourishment, some nurturance, that seed becomes what? A plant. Now, if you wanted tomatoes, would you plant carrot seeds? No. Okay? And this is very simply how things get kind of messed up, because I don't know about you guys, but what I want is perfect health and perfect wealth and tremendous abundance and just amazingly lovingly relationships. Okay? Just all good things in my life. But sometimes what I'm planning is a thought that says, okay, or something where, like, I look in my purse and go, I know I had a $10 bill in there. What the hell happened to it? Oh my gosh. Because the law always says yes. I might look at something and say, looks like it's going to be really cold and ugly outside today. And, what's going to happen in my world? If enough of that goes out, yeah, I'm going to create cold and ugly, right? Now, I probably don't have the capacity. I'm not going to say I don't have the capacity. It might be easy to have more of us thinking along the same lines if we want to create something that might not really be within the idea of nature right now. Okay? So if we wanted it to be 85 degrees outside today here in Sylva, North Carolina, and enough of us got together, we might be able to warm it up out there a little bit. I don't know if we get to 85, but it is a belief that we, in this teaching, that we have the ability to bring forth that which we are clear about, that which we plant into universal law, into divine mind. It's going to say yes to anything we put out there. Yeah. Again, there's a piece here that is important. If the plant that we are getting is not what we think we planted, we have to look at the seed. Ernest tells us, as high as we shall make our mark in mind and spirit, so high shall be its outward manifestation in our material world. So if we want something like peace for all people, we have to begin to focus on that as a truth, on that as a condition. We also, I believe, have to begin to work on that at home, right here. So if we want world peace out there, we had better get to a place where we are at peace in here. Okay? If we are not at peace here, what's going on out there is not going to be real peaceful. Right? Yeah. And what we put out is what we get. It's a very, very karmic kind of thing, isn't it? And it really is the law of cause and effect in action. The top is causal and the bottom is effect. So there's one other piece to this that we'll go to in the next slide. And that is the little V. Now, back when I was waiting tables when I was in school, I would have people come into Bogart's, and they would be about 20 or 25 years old. And I would have this on, okay? And they would go, oh yeah, that's really cool. That's Van Halen, isn't it? Yeah, let's not get any deeper than that. What, would you like fries with that? Yeah, sure, fries or whatever, okay? But this is essentially saying the same thing. It is saying that everything comes from that vastness that is nothing but potentiality, and it comes down into form, okay? It dives deep into the physicality. I think Ernest calls it particularization. Yes. Now, if you are into any kind of quantum science, this is where you really see quantum and science of mind meeting, because quantum science says that what consciousness focuses on is what will come to be. So if you're in your car and you're freaking 20 minutes late for an appointment, and you're thinking, I'm going to be late, I'm going to hit every red light, oh my God, they're not going to give me this job that I'm going to interview for, and you're flipping out, metaphorically wetting your pants, okay, what are you going to create? Every red light, and maybe not a very happy person when you get to that interview. Yeah. I tell you that the opposite of that is true. I had a friend of mine who lives in another state call me one day, and this was at a point where I don't know what was going on in my life, but I was walking around saying the mantra that there's always more than enough. There's always more than enough. Doesn't matter whether it's love or money or peace or good, healthy food that I want to eat, that I'm attracted to. There's always more than enough. And so my girlfriend calls me up, and she says, I'm in the car, but I'm so late. And it was something like this. She was going to something that was really important, and she was on one side of town, going to the other, at, rush hour traffic, la la la. And she was almost in tears. And I said, there's always more than enough. Shut up your thinking, rational, crazy, egoic mind, and say to yourself, there's always more than enough time. I have seen time collapse. I have seen stuff show up where, who knew? Who knew? I mean, who knew how that was going to happen? Okay? How something was going to work out. Now let's think about this. Let's take this one more step here. Okay? This process, this moving into form, out of form, back into form, out of form, this process never stops. I don't care whether you are awake or asleep. You are always creating. The universe is always creating. If God stops creating, guys, guess what? It's all over. And we won't even have time to say goodbye. It will just disappear. Okay? Because this is what the universe is doing. It's always bringing into form and moving on, and bringing into form and moving on. Okay? So you can't not be creating. How do you create? Well, we've talked about this. through your thought, through your feeling, through your belief, through your vibration, if you will, through everything that you are putting out, you are bringing life back into form. Ever get frustrated with your thinking mind and kind of want to run away from it? What about when you're sitting in meditation and your thought process just goes and you just want to, oh, shut up, I've had enough of you. Ever get frustrated with yourself that it seems like you're not satisfied? You start someplace and you go, okay, you know, in my life, in my profession, or in my relationship, or whatever arena it is, I want to create this. I want to experience this. And so that becomes your intention, and what you do is you literally bring that experience into your life through the creative process we've talked about. And once that expression arrives, what happens? Well, I don't know about you guys, but about 10 minutes later I'm going, okay, what's next? What are we, you know, and I do this with food too. I mean, we've had lunch, what's for dinner, you know, okay? You know, we just keep on going, okay? And sometimes it becomes very frustrating because it feels like I'm never satisfied. I never truly get to park for a while. I have to keep moving forward. But that is the very nature of God. If God doesn't keep going, guess what? None of us will either. None of us isn't either. None of us will, period. Yeah. It is not our nature to sit still. It is not who we are. It is not what we are to become satisfied with something and just sit with it. We are creative by nature. Ernest Holmes wrote a lot of books about that. Creative Mind and Success. Creative Mind was his very first book. Was that the first one? Was it Basic Ideas of Science of Mind? I don't know. He writes a darn many books. I can't keep track of them. So, but if you are not satisfied with your life, if that next thought kind of is poking you in the rib cage and annoying you, thank God, because that is what that thought is. That is what that desire is. That is what that expression is. It is just God moving forward and moving forward and moving forward. It is not going to stop. That is God. Resistance is futile. So we might as well roll with it. As we close, we're going to watch a little piece on creativity. This is an artistic skill that is just phenomenal to me. This is about 6 minutes in length. I'm sorry. So last week we talked about Winter Feast for the Soul, and we talked about a lot of different ways that you can engage in spiritual practice. And one of the things we mentioned was through the expressive arts, that many of us truly connect on a deep level and feel ourselves just being supported and carried by life when we do something artistic. So what we're going to watch is a gal who is doing sand art, and it's really amazing to watch her as she does this. You may have seen this on Facebook or someplace. It's actually a New Year's Eve thing. She's a Russian a component about that I heard years ago, that if we take sand and we try to hold on to it too tightly, it's the same thing as if we try to hold on to a relationship. You can't hold sand in your fist tightly. It will escape you unless it's really wet. It just doesn't work that way. We can't hold on to life. We have to allow ourselves to be pulled in the flow of that creativity. And I think as we watch this, what we're going to see is that this woman is just so in the flow doing her artwork. So enjoy this last little piece. Thank you.